All right, so again, guys, we're going to get started with 1-1 day 2 notes. Today we're focusing on goal number 4, which is find intercepts from a graph, and we're going to use our graphing utility, which is a fancy way to say graphing calculator, okay? Did I remind you guys about getting apps on your phones? You guys know the Android app? Did we talk about that? Yes, no? If not, I'm going to zoom in real quick. Here's my phone. I'm not cool enough to have an iPhone. I have an Android. And if you have an Android phone like me, you can download the app called Wabbit Emu. It's like you're saying rabbit, but you're Elmer Fudd, so you're saying Wasqui Wabbit. You Wasqui Wabbit, you Wabbit Emu. Okay, so if you have an Android, look that up. You click on that, and that is a emulator of a TI-84. And I have the colored edition here. Look how pretty that is. Okay. The other option, if you guys don't have TI-83s or 84s at home, then the next option is buy one. If you can't afford to buy one or you don't want to buy one, okay. Then the next option is send me an email. I'll send you a link for a Google form that you guys can fill out. And you're going to have to drop that off to the main office. And Mrs. Soffert has a whole bunch of TI-83s or 84s that were donated, so you guys can use those. But it's like a book. If you lose a book, you got to pay for it. If you lose a calculator, you're going to have to pay for it. And they're about $140 to replace. So just know that. All right? All right, guys, let's get started. Are you ready? You ready? I'm ready. Let's giddy up. Evaluate. Before we dive into our integers, we got to, or not integers, but intercepts, we need to evaluate an equation, okay? So here I have a basic equation. I have x squared plus y squared equals 4, and they want you to see if 0, 2 is on the graph. Okay, so that's our goal. Is 0, 2 on the graph? Anybody have suggestions on figuring that out? What do you think?
Could you plug in 0 for x and 2 for y?
Awesome. Just plug it in, plug it in. So this is my x, this is my y. Plug in 0 squared plus 2 squared equals 4. And then we do a little math magic. That's 0 plus 4. Well, that's 4 equals 4. Yes. It works out. Well, then we try the next one. We got negative 2, 2. X is negative 2, y is 2. I'm going to plug in. I want to see if that point's on that graph. I take negative 2 and I square it. And then I take 2 and I square it and equal to 4. Well, what happens when you take a negative and you square it? What's a negative 2 squared?
4.
Yeah, we get 4. All right. You dirty dogs got to get here on time. You dirty dogs. Now, when I say that, I'm joking, guys. Yeah? You don't know that I'm joking, but I'm joking. But try to get here on time, guys. That way we don't have to hear the doorbell all the time. So if it says I got 8 equal to 4, obviously that's crazy. That is not part of my graph. Okay? So then we would say, no, that is not on the graph. Y'all have any questions with evaluating points to see if they're on the graph? Do we need to do the other one, the root 2? Can I get a thumbs up? Are we good? Move on? Or do we need to... What's that?
I have another question. So I downloaded like Wabbit email. Like which calculator type should I?
You want the graph TI-84 graphing, the colored edition.
Well, it says TI-84 plus SE.
Yeah, plus CE. Yeah, that's the one you want.
Well, there's CSE or SE.
I have plus CE, I think. Basically I have the silver plus silver edition, SE. CSE, I would do just the best one they got. I would download that one.
All right.
Okay? All right, so now working on intercepts. I'm a visual guy. I want to give you a visual here. Okay. So it says find the intercepts from the graph. Now, when we're looking at intercepts, we're looking to see where it crosses the x-axis. Let me rewrite that. X-axis. Well, the x-axis is a special line. The x-axis is where y equals 0. And when we're trying to find the y-intercept, we're trying to find where it crosses or touches the y-axis. That's the y-axis. And the y-axis is a special vertical line. That's x equals 0. Okay? So I take a look at the graph. This is going to be just like you see on my math lab. And we got to identify, well, which one is the x-intercepts? So I find the x-axis, and I see right here and right here. Okay? Hopefully you guys can see this is negative pi, and this guy right here is pi. Okay? Get it so you can see a little better. So this is negative pi, and this is pi. So I write that as a corner point. I have pi comma 0 as one of the points, or negative pi comma 0. I believe my math lab will accept, you can double check, but they will accept plus or minus pi 0. Okay? Double check. If you find that answer and they won't say accept plus or minus pi comma 0, then you'll have to spread it out. So pi 0 comma negative pi 0. Okay? Okay. Next one, I got the y-intercept where it crosses the y-axis. Okay, so I'm going to do this one in red. That's this guy right there. Okay, so I count down 1, 2. So my corner point there is 0, negative 2. And that's it. So we should be able to visualize, we should be able to see a graph and identify where it crosses or touches the x and y intercepts, or y axes. All right? Y'all have any questions with that? No questions. Y'all good? All right. I'm going to move on to the next thing. If you can do it visually, the next thing we need to be able to do is to find x and y intercepts algebraically. Okay? So we want to use a little algebra. Well, you have to know what x and y intercepts are. So we got to go back up to this idea. Okay, up here it says x-intercepts are when y equals 0. And y-intercepts are when x equals 0. All right. So what do? How do I find the x-intercept knowing that y is equal to 0? Let's see. Braden, do you know? Broderick, do you know? Janelle, Emily, any ideas? Suggestions. I want to find the x-intercept, and I know the y value is 0. Suggestions on what I do.
So you plug in 0 for y.
That a boy. Was that Broderick? So we take the y value, and we plug in 0. Now, back in the day in algebra, we used the cover-up method. So when you plug in 0, just cover it up and write what's left. Okay, so we get x squared equals 4, and then we square root both sides. And you guys would shout out, what's the square root of 4, y'all? 2. And that's not necessarily correct. You're half right, half wrong. Anytime you square root both sides, I always say, don't forget the plus or minus. Technically, you would get the x is equal to the absolute value of 2, and there's always 2 answers for that. So make note to yourself. You're going to hear me say this a lot. Don't forget the plus or minus. Okay? Star this up. Star that up. Highlight it. I'm a highlighting guy on my notes, so my eyes always get there. Maybe highlight this guy. Don't forget the plus or minus. Okay? All right, so we got our x equals plus or minus 2. For me, I'm okay with plus or minus 2, 0. You got to see what my math lab, I believe it will take it. I can't remember, but I think it does. 2, 0, negative 2, 0 is your other option. Okay, this for me would be fine. Just understand that that represents 2 points, 2, 0, and negative 2, 0. So far, so good? So the next one, and we want to find the y-intercept. So now I do the opposite. I plug in x equals 0. So I use the cover-up method. Okay? So now I've got y squared is equal to 4. And then I square root. And we know the square root of 4 is?
2.
Don't forget the plus or minus. All right? So I get y equals plus or minus 2. So that's 0, comma, plus or minus 2. Understand that that's 0, 2, and 0, negative 2. Okay? All right, just for fun, you guys know what this is a graph of? X squared plus y squared equals 4. You guys know what that's a graph of? Probably a...
Parabola.
I just tricked you. No, it's a circle, actually. It's a circle. If I was to graph this guy just for fun, I'd count over 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. These are my x and y intercepts. And I would connect the dots, and I have a nice, pretty circle. Okay? And then if you guys were here, I would go off on a sideboard and show you one of my awesome skills, and that's to draw perfect circles, which you really can't see, but you would be amazed. You'd be like, oh my gosh, how did you make that perfect circle? And just erase this right there, and you would be amazed. Jaws would be dropping. You would just be unbelievable, Mr. Gotch. That is one of my talents. I can draw perfect circles. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to move on to the backside. Okay, so if you're looking at your notes, you guys have any questions with finding x and y intercepts algebraically? Just plug and chug. Plug in 0 for x, plug in 0 for y, and those are your points. All right, next. It says up here, we want to graph each equation by plotting points. Okay. One thing you guys could do is you could just find the x and y intercepts. So that's a good little practice. Again, you could do y equals 0 and x equals 0. You plug those in. You guys can look, I have y equals x minus 5. I'm going to go ahead and plug in 0 for y. So I get 0 equals x minus 5. And I'm going to add the 5 over. So I get x equals 5. So I would have 5, 0. Okay? So I want to graph 5, 0. Which way do I go? Up, down, left, or right? Shout it out. 5, 0.
Right.
To the right, to the right, to the right. Perfect. We do it one more time. We do the y-intercept. You can plug in 0 for x, use the cover-up method, and that leaves me with y equals negative 5. And that's 0, comma, negative 5. So I'm at 0, negative 5. I want to plot that point. Which way do I go? Up, down, left, or right, 5.
Down.
I'm going down. I'm yelling, timber, you better move. You better dance. Hashtag Kesha. I got 0, negative. Oh, I'm sorry. That was awful. Do you guys even listen to Kesha anymore? It's probably not so funny. You guys don't even know who Kesha is, probably. Oh. There we go. Nice, pretty line. Okay. Now, that's one way to do it. My math lab will be pretty picky on what values you can plug in. So if you plug in like 0 here and you get a decimal, then that's probably not going to be good, okay? So try to pick a number that's going to give you an integer after you evaluate. So like if we plugged in 0 here and we got a decimal, that we would have to reevaluate. The other thing you can do is just go off to the side and make a table. And again, plug in 0. 0 minus 5 is -5. Plug that point in. Plug in 1. 1 minus 5 is -4. Now I have 2 points, and I could easily graph that. Okay? Do you guys need to see 5a, or can we skip that? Do we need to see that one, or are we okay to skip? Because I don't want to waste your time. Skip? Skip it. Skip it. Skipping. All right. This is where we need our calculators, guys. Okay? It says find your intercepts using your graphing utility or graphing calculator. This is where I'm going to go to y equals, and for y1, I'm going to type in x minus 5. And then for y2, I'm going to type in 0. So y2, type in 0. All right, so grab your calculators. So y equals is right there. I'm going to press y equals. In y1, I'm doing x. X is right next to the alpha, right next to the green button for me. Minus. If it was plus 5, I would do plus. If it's minus, I use the one above it. So minus. We don't use this one very often. That'd be if it was like a negative 2x plus 5, I would use that for the negative. We use the big minus sign in between terms. Okay? So I've got x minus 5. Then go down to y2. And I want 0. Okay? And now before we hit zoom 6, I'm double checking to make sure my plots are not highlighted. If my plots are highlighted, I've got problems. Okay, so we don't want problems. So zoom 6, zoom standard, that gives me that nice, pretty window. I can see the blue line graphing, and then I now have my y equals 0 line, which is also that x-axis. So hopefully you guys can see that. If you can't see something, say something, okay, guys? You guys okay with that? Now, if you have a black and yellow model or black and white model, whatever, doesn't have color, then you're not going to see this line, but you got to know that it's there, okay? And you have to have y2 0. If not, you're not going to be able to use this next function I'm going to use. Okay, I'm going to use second trace, which is the calculate menu, number 5, which is intersect. Second trace, number 5, intersect. I want to find the intersection right there of my red line and my blue line. Okay? So press second. Second is right up here. Trace is next to zoom. See graph, trace, zoom. So trace. And I want to toggle down with my directional pad, or I just press 5, the number 5. Now, it's going to ask you which 2 curves do you want to intersect. If I go to y equals, there's 10 things I could graph. There's a y1, a y2, a y3, or y4. Well, I only want to intersect 2 things. So they're going to say, well, which 2 things do you want to intersect? If I only have 2 things graphed, then I just press enter on the first one. I press enter on the second one, and then guess. This is where I move it towards the one I want to find. If I had an intersection here and here, then I'd have to decide which way do I move the directional pad. So if I want to find the one on the right, I'll do that. Press enter. And don't write anything until you see the word intersection. If you're writing down the answer when you see the word guess, you are guessing that it's right, and it's never right. You're going to be wrong. Don't write anything until you see the word intersection. And now my answer I got was 5, 0. Okay? I'm going to walk you through that one more time because some people might not be listening. So tune in to WGOTSCH. I'm here all day long. Here we go. Second trace, number 5. You can use the directional pad, and press enter, or just press 5. First curve, press enter. Second curve, press enter. Guess, press enter, and it will find that intersection. You guys have any questions with that one? All right. Some teachers do second trace 0, and that is an option, but I don't like that one, okay? Because sometimes it says left bound, right bound, guess, and then people don't know their lefts and the rights, and they can't find it. They get bound errors, and I just don't have the patience for that. So number 5 works great, but you have to have a Y1 and a Y2. So Y1 and a Y2. All right, next I'm going to do y-intercepts. I'm going to press second trace, which is going to bring me back to that calculate menu. And then I'm going to do number 1 value. And the value that I'm going to type in is x equals 0. All right. Let me get this little mark off my calculator. All right, so second trace, calculate menu. I want number 1, just press enter. And then it says, well, what x value do you want me to evaluate, Mr. Gotsch? And I'm going to say 0, enter. And it jumps right to my y-intercept. Right there is 0, -5. Let me know if you guys are not getting that. So 0, -5. I'm going to do it one more time just so you can see it one more time. I'm going to go second trace value 0. Press enter. Okay. Now, the nice thing about this guy right here, second trace value, the value option for the calculate menu is really nice because number 1, I visually see, yes, that is definitely the y-intercept. And I can also plug in as many numbers as I want. So like in example 4a, it asked me to graph an equation by plotting points. I could type this guy in and I plug in 0 and I get -5. I could plug in 1 and I got -4. I don't have to keep on going back to second trace value. Okay, if I want to verify that 5 is the x-intercept, I plug in 5, enter, and it gives me 5, 0. So now I just verified, yep, that's it. Okay, so second trace value is really nice because visually I can see it, and then I can plug in a bunch of points. Okay, the other option is you could do second graph, which is the table menu, and then you can see all the coordinate points there. So these are all your inputs, and these are all your outputs. If I plug in 5, I get 0. If I plug in 0, I get -5. Okay, now you also need to know how to change that around a little bit. I don't really, again, use the table very often, so I don't talk much about this, but I'll say, okay, if you press second window, that's the table set. Second window is the table set. Change in table, if you want integers, make this number an integer, like 1. Okay, and that's the change in the table set. So the x values will go up by 1. If you want the x values to go up by 2, then make them 2. Okay, this is the table start. So if I look at my table, it starts at -4, and they're going up by 1. Okay, that's the idea. All right. Questions with number 4b. Now, I don't want to do number 5. I'm just going to talk about what do we do with number 5. How I can't punch this in the calculator until I do what? Y equals. Yeah, I want to solve for y. Very good. So to do that, I need to move this x over. So I'm going to subtract 5x over. Okay. So now I have -2y equals, and you can write this as either 10 minus 5x. I prefer -5x plus 10. The one thing I can't do is combine those because those are unlike terms. One has an x and one doesn't. Okay. Last but not least is solve for y. This is -2 times y. I'm going to go ahead and divide. And the idea is if I divide it to this guy and this guy, I have to do it to this guy as well. Okay, that'd be like if Joey D brought in donuts for everybody. You know, he can't just bring in donuts just for me and him. He's got to do it for everybody or it wouldn't be fair. Right? So Joey, when you bring in donuts, buddy, everybody.
I'll make a note.
All right. So negative divided by negative is a positive 5 halves x. 10 divided by negative 2 is negative 5. Then we could plug that into y1 and go through the process again. Does anybody need me to do that for them or with them? If you were, especially if you have a TI-83, use parentheses around these fractions, okay? So just a reminder where parentheses are above the 8 and the 9. All right? All right. Do you guys have any questions? All right, this is what I have planned. I was going to let you guys go until about 1 o'clock. You guys can shut your screens off, shut your microphones off. You can get started. Do you guys know where that homework is? I showed you that. So you can work on the 1-1 day 2 homework. If you still have questions, then you can ask me. I'm going to be right here. I'm just going to stop recording.